And now, of course, the media is saying, well, we don't need to show his address tonight because he's just going to gripe about the 2020 election. And there was a question today asked during the White House press briefing. Caroline Leavitt's back from maternity leave. And I guess Caitlin Collins from CNN, I'm sure we could pull this up, but she ended up asking this question along the lines of, well, President Trump has been in office for over 500 days. And if he's showing evidence because he's just going to gripe there was election fraud in 2020, how come nobody has been arrested? Well, they're apparently declassifying documents. We can get this video pulled up. They're declassifying documents from what we've been told so far about this address, and things can change, of course. And President Trump is known for, taking, not really, announcing ahead of time what he's going to do. I think that he is more, I feel like President Trump, compared to other presidents, he has a lot more confidence and a lot more capability in speaking off the cuff and just having a heart-to-heart conversation with the American people. So even if they were to tell us ahead of time what he's going to be talking about, the president, as we all know, is known for kind of freestyling and veering off of the teleprompter. So I don't think that we should just assume that he's only going to be speaking about election security tonight and the Save America Act. We are now in the fifth consecutive night of additional strikes on Iran because, well, surprise, surprise, Muslim terrorists didn't keep their word and they didn't abide by this MOU that JD Vance touted. And, he felt so strongly about. They felt so strongly about this MOU with the Iranians, right? Orchestrated by the Pakistanis, that now if you oppose it or you dare to speak out and say that it's a bad deal, or you actually have common sense to know that, well, Muslims don't really keep their word, do they? The IRGC, Islamic terrorists, they don't exactly keep their word now, do they? Apparently, we're all Israeli spies. We're all on the payroll of Bibi Netanyahu. We're all on the payroll of Mossad. And, well, we're owed a lot of back pay. And if you had enough common sense to not support the Iran deal when Barack Hussein Obama was president, you're an Israeli spy. If you now apply that same logic, and we were told for years that Obama never should have made a deal with Iran, that it was a disaster, that you can't make deal with terrorists. And now what are we doing? We're making a deal with terrorists.
Yeah, I got a little bit on the fires too. I'm going to play that later though. It was a little bit better here today, Pat. Hopefully it was better where you were today. I mean, you could see anyways for distance. They still say the air quality is really bad. Trump's thinking of suing or something to do with it because of the mismanagement. The whole environmentalist caused this.
We will know that there is no justice and no accountability in our country if after what was released tonight and what was declassified tonight results in nobody getting arrested and nobody going to jail.
That's so true.
You'll know. You'll just know that we are a conquered nation, that we are completely controlled by our foreign adversaries, and that we probably will collapse as a nation. I've been saying it for a long time. America 250 is not a celebration. America 250 is a funeral. People need to wake up and realize that all empires die. All empires come to an end. And as much as I love America and I want America to continue to thrive as a powerful empire, we have to admit that we are severely compromised as a nation and we are severely infiltrated by our adversaries, especially at the deepest level within our intel agencies and our own digital infrastructure. Within our own digital infrastructure. So I don't expect the media to talk about this story because ABC and NBC already said that they weren't going to be talking about it tonight. So I'm sure they're probably scrambling to accuse President Trump of spewing conspiracy theories about everything. But look, the reality is that I'm not really celebrating. Right. I'm grieving for our nation. I feel like we've been having a funeral for America 250. I don't really see any of this foreign interference being cracked down on. You don't have any foreign enforcement. You have Podcastistan, all these influencers getting paid by foreign governments that are pushing out all of these crazy foreign influence operations, blaming Trump for everything, blaming the
Well, I got a report on it, Pat. I'll be playing it soon. I'm waiting for a few more people to come in, though.
The Jews blaming Israel and they're not holding China accountable. How come China's never held accountable? How come we hear all this shit about Israel? Did Israel get into our elections and create fake ballots? No, that was China. You never hear anybody complain about China, though. You never hear anybody complain about Qatar. You never hear
I complain about them.
anybody complain about the IRGC and Iran and their propaganda campaigns. All you hear about is Israel this, Assad this, IDF this, Israel this, Bibi Netanyahu. Nobody wants to talk about Xi Jinping and the CCP efforts to rig our elections. So we need to take down the CCP. It's time to kick out every single Chinese foreign national in our country, especially all of the foreign Chinese students who, let's be honest, they're just spies.
It could be.
This is an outright attack on the American people. This is election interference on a whole other level. The left says that they are so oppressed that they're working against the system, when in reality, they are the system. ABC News, NBC just exposed that they, in fact, are the true fascists in this nation. Because as news outlets, they should be posting and airing President Trump's primetime address to the nation on their broadcast networks, correct? Since that is news. But instead, they are going to throw a hissy fit and say that they will not participate. While President Trump is busy trying to secure our elections and keep our freedoms in this country, ABC News and NBC are more worried about getting gotcha moments. And like I said, the left, you want to say you're fighting the system? You are the system. You own Hollywood. You own the mainstream media. You own the music industry, big tech, you name it. You are not fighting the system. You are the ones that have fed into it and want to take down every freedom that we have in this country. I hope you all realize that you are raging hypocrites. And NBC tried to silence me earlier with my post, tried to give me a copyright infringement notice because they didn't like my criticism of their movie. Well, we see you. We see exactly who you are. And like I said, you are the true fascists in this country.
I pretty much lost all my platforms back then for speaking out against the jab and the election steal. Those two things, they really didn't like it, I tell you that.
The Jezebel whore, Sodom and Gomorrah media, and the crank far left politicians, aka communists, are truly having an existential meltdown over President Trump's presentation this evening. They honestly have no idea what he's going to say. He did give, or at least some associated with the White House, did give some of the whore media a heads up about, hey, what this may be talked about. But honestly, you don't know what President Trump is going to say. He's Bocephus, the big 4,000-pound bull from back in the day in a delicate china shop. You don't know what he's going to say or do. There's no guarantee, and you're not in his head. So you're panicked. Nicole Wallace, with her usual uninteresting, uncharismatic tone, well, Donald Trump is just going to tell you more lies. And she mocks it.
That's all I keep seeing on the regular media.
With her little laugh, the sanctimonious resting bitch face that she has had ever since she left. Didn't she work for Bill Clinton or somebody back in the day? She's no better as a broadcaster, aka propagandists. They're all propagandists. They're all very highly paid to lie to you on the regular. And, I don't want to use their same words, but I am going to talk about how they are seriously freaking out. They don't know what he's going to actually say. So all that they can do is to try to get ahead of it by telling the audience or the potential audience, don't even bother to watch it. Don't even bother. It's not worth it. You're just going to waste your time. He's just going to tell you a bunch of lies. He's just going to lie to you about the 2020 election. He's going to say it was stolen, but there's been no evidence and there's been no court. Remember, all the judges who threw it out because there was no standing. Yeah, right. There was no standing. Got it. Mountains of evidence have been presented. You forget we saw videos of the TCF banking center back on the 4th of November of 2020 being boarded up. We saw the Republican electors who were not allowed access into the inner sanctum of where the counting was taking place. We saw boarded up windows. Why would you do that if you conducted the most secure election since Julius Caesar? You conducted the most golden, what is that Jenna Griswold here in Colorado says? It's the gold standard. The gold standard. It's the gold standard of elections. Why would you compromise that by telling the public, don't even bother to watch it? Don't believe me? This is an article by the Daily Express. Panicking AOC, Sandy Cortez, pleads with broadcasters not to air Trump address to nation. He is the president of the United States of America. He runs the Federal Communications Commission. This is his First Amendment right to free speech. You empty-headed ninny. You go straight from college to Congress. You never had a job. I don't believe she was ever a bartender. Show me a W-2. I don't believe she was. I think it's just an image thing they tried to create. They, meaning Justice Democrats, since she was an actress, she won a casting call. Yeah, that's it. She won a casting call. And by God, she removed a 10-term safe Democrat who wasn't actually safe. Same thing happened here in Colorado just a few weeks ago with Milot Kiros, an Ethiopian transplant, we'll say, who beat out a 14-term Democrat, Diana DeGette, right here in Colorado. Yeah, so this AOC, or whatever the hell her name is panicking. And she just says we have an obligation. Networks have an obligation not to air Donald Trump's bombshell speech on Thursday if he plans on misleading America. Oh, you're the same individuals who told us that the jabs were 100% safe and effective. You think we've forgotten about that? But we're supposed to listen to you. Remember Chris Cuomo? During the WikiLeaks, when he said, you can't read it, you'll go to jail. It's a crime for you to read WikiLeaks. You need to come to CNN. You need to come to us, and we will tell you what it says.
Tell you what to think.
You don't get to have a mind of your own. Are you insane? So AOC is pleading with networks. Good God. Oh, please do not show this. This is like, this might prove that I didn't actually win my seat like ever. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to actually be a bartender or a barista or something. Oh my God, this is terrible. You need to have mercy on me. Don't say those things. And whatever he says, it's lies. It's all lies. It's fabrication. Is that what you people are afraid of? Because he is bringing along the heads of federal agencies who have actually had access to this information the entire time they've been in their positions. So it's not just conjecture. It's not just hearsay. It's not just, conspiracy theories. It's actual documented fact. We remember windows being boarded up on the 4th of November, 2020. We remember bags of ballots being hauled in, suitcases full of ballots being hauled in to counting centers across the country. My God, really? Are you serious? Counting way into...
Don't believe your eyes, just sort of like the jab.
...the night into the morning of the 5th of November. And the counting just went on and on and on till the break of dawn. But don't listen to it. Ever heard of this thing called the Streisand effect? Everybody's going to be watching.
Amen. All right, here's the important part of Trump's speech last night.
Major challenge that must be urgently addressed because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his reelection. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid 2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid 2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job. And they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA.
Now later you'll see that they were doing it not just in those races. They were stealing like Georgia races and everything. They were stealing a lot of races.
Reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judged that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to.
Actually, the machines are doing what they're supposed to do. They're programmed to do what they're doing, the cheating.
Do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020. And that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop.
I didn't have my mic on. Also, a lot of the FBI were part of the whole cover-up and the whole steal. And I'm going to be showing that a little bit later, too. Roger, the Roger guys does a lot on that. I'm going to be playing his thing.
To digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned. They couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review, state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls. And yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody. And it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it.
Yep. Yeah, I got a little bit of that thing too. A couple minutes of the press conference today. All right, this is Platt when he met with Trump. Platt there, who was running for mayor. This is by Benny Johnson.
24 hours ago, Spencer Pratt dropped a thermonuclear bomb on the political landscape by posting a photo of him and President Trump in the Oval Office, staring each other down in deep conversation with the chief of staff to the entire executive branch there as well, along with his son, of course, his fighting motivation. Everybody wondered what could be going on here. What could they be talking about? And now we know. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer Pratt just released what we've been waiting for. Proof of fraud in his mayoral race that was rigged and stolen from him. And it has gone thermonuclear viral, 48,000 likes, 8,000 reposts. Spencer Pratt has done it again. I didn't get cheated. You did. Here we go.
In judicial ethics, the mere appearance of potential fraud is disqualifying. Same goes here. Whether or not there is widespread fraud occurring, there certainly could be, and it doesn't matter how many times you scream, there's no widespread fraud. A lot of people believe there is, and there's no way to actually validate it. This isn't just about whether or not fraud is swinging the election. The appearance of fraud already is swinging the election. People rightly have zero faith in this janky, inefficient system. They feel like their vote isn't being counted. They feel like illegal ballots are being cast, and they're not wrong to worry about it. There's literally no safeguards in place to prevent that from happening, and way too many openings for it to occur on a massive scale. You all saw how I was neck and neck with Karen Basura on election night, nearly double digits ahead of Nithya, just as the polling predicted.
Rahman fighting tears on election night, trailing Spencer Pratt by roughly 40,000 votes and about 10 percentage points.
I dominated the in-person vote. I smashed Nithya on the mail-in ballots too. She was crying on election night. It was over. Then a few days later, suddenly Nithya started overperforming as they continued to accept ballots 7 days after the election.
But days of counting mail-in ballots have changed the map.
I'm so grateful.
Rahman has now erased a 40,000 vote deficit and moved ahead of Pratt by roughly 3,000 votes, a net swing of more than 43,000 votes.
43,000 votes, which just happens to be the exact number of homeless people on the streets in LA. They assured everyone that this is normal because for some reason that they can't explain, Democrats overwhelmingly vote by mail.
There's a historical phenomenon in national voting called the Red Mirage.
The Red Mirage.
What we were calling a Red Mirage.
The Red Mirage.
Red Mirage. Yeah. This term was coined because about some swing states count votes, usually favoring Republicans early. Then it becomes an advantage for Democrats later in the evening and then into the next morning.
You expect to see the Republican with a lead, but it's not really a lead.
Democrats vote in higher numbers by a mail-in ballot. Historically, Democrats vote in higher numbers by mail-in ballots.
But not all Democrats, just the ones who are voting for the third place candidate. The one
They did it because it's hard to get to the polls if you're in the cemetery, so they used the mail-in one, right?
Candidate who really needed the votes. Don't forget, there were 2 Democrats in the race, but for some reason, only the third place Democrat who needed the votes saw a disproportionate spike in votes several days after the election. Plus, multiple studies have shown that mail voting doesn't provide an advantage to either party. It's a myth. The media will say that claims of fraud here are without evidence. Keep in mind, an anomalous statistical spike like this is evidence of fraud. Ask any forensic accountant. It may not be necessarily proof of fraud, but it is certainly evidence of fraud. But forget the late ballots. Just because the vote swing coincidentally matched the specific Lhasa count of homeless people on the streets, just because NGOs that Nithya cuts checks to were hoarding ballots, just because hundreds of thousands of dead people and ex-residents who've left California were still on the voter rolls, doesn't mean anyone is taking those loose ballots and filling them out. First off, it's again.
You mentioned the NGOs. Now, our government, now Trump's people are going after some of these NGOs about all this money that's coming from out of the country, or actually coming from the country, out of the country, then back into the country to steal our elections.
It's the law. And we all know if it's against the law, it doesn't happen. Secondly, we have signature verification. Everyone has to sign their ballot, and a computer checks your signature. Well, except some voters can't sign, so they carved out a rule where you can just make a mark on the ballot, and a witness can sign on your behalf. It can be an X or a scribble or even a happy face, as long as a witness signs off on it. And don't forget, once they separate the ballot from the envelope, there's zero way to trace it back to the ballot to check if a sudden tranche of votes that swung predominantly to one candidate had come from a bunch of ballots with the happy faces in the signature box. The DSA instructs their ballot harvesters to go door to door and tell them to vote for Nithya Rahman and even help them fill in the bubble for their preferred socialist candidates. This is explicitly illegal. A ballot harvester can't tell you how to vote, and they certainly can't help you fill out the ballot. The laws don't matter if you have no mechanism in place to prevent the crime from occurring in the first place. There is this misnomer being parroted even by staunch critics of California's rigged voting system, saying there's nothing you can do because this is all legal in California. It's not legal. Even by California's own ridiculous laws, all this stuff is still illegal. They've simply removed all the mechanisms to catch the fraud and prevent it from happening. It's like a bank heist, but California has made a law that you can't lock the bank vault. You're not allowed to have security cameras, and you can't count the money inside the vault. Robbing the bank is still 100% illegal, but there's no way to stop it from happening. Now here's the smoky backroom dealing. 5 days before my election, Gavin Newsom signed a ridiculous law that literally banned federal and independent authorities from investigating vote fraud or overseeing elections to monitor for fraud during the counting process.
That's why I'm moving forward with new legislation that would make it a felony to seize ballots before the vote has been certified by state and county officials. We will be the wall he cannot get past.
That's like banning the bank from having security cameras. Now, the timing of this was deliberate. He knows this won't hold up in court, but he did it so close to the election day, he knew the courts wouldn't be able to overturn it in time for the election. It's truly like going up against the casino. The deck is so stacked against you, you never really stand a chance. You can play if you choose, but the house will never lose. So now, in California, you can loot $950 of merchandise. You can knowingly infect someone with HIV, but if you try to prevent vote fraud,
You will be prosecuted.
how can you secure the money if you can't lock the vault? How can you catch the robbers if you're not allowed to monitor the vault? And how can you even identify if the vault were even robbed in the first place if you can't even count the money? This is what California has done with the elections. Unsolicited ballots going into open mailboxes and NGOs and parking lots. Bank vault is wide open. No signature required, no ID required, no way to ID the robbers. And the beauty of their rigged system is they can have all the pageantry of this public ballot counting center. Hey, come on down. It's open to the public. Anyone can come watch so you can see just how kosher our system is.
We are inside LA County's massive ballot processing center when Assistant United States Attorney arrived on scene to observe the process and ask questions.
All the fraud that does occur happens long before the ballots even hit this building. People have been pushing me to demand a recount. Why? You could recount these anonymous ballots 100 times. You'll get the same exact result. I have no doubt that they are doing a flawless job of accurately counting every single ballot in here with robotic precision. The fraud isn't here. It's here on Skid Row, where homeless people are paid a couple of bucks for their ballots.
They give you $2 to vote?
Yeah, we do the street. We shoot something.
Would they come down here and kind of pay you to vote?
Yes.
They told you who to vote for?
Since I'm voting your way, can I get a plate? You know what I mean?
It's here where socialist street animals go door to door and violate the ballot harvesting laws. People bring up the old communist adage often attributed to Stalin saying, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. No, this is the modern era of fraud. They've gotten wise. The modern communist agrees with the old communist, but just the first part. It doesn't matter who votes. It doesn't matter if it's a drug zombie being paid for their ballot. It doesn't matter if it's a DSA socialist street animal filling out your ballot. It doesn't matter if it's a blue-haired...
A lot of them, they're getting assigned forged names just to get them to sign, you know? Made up. Some of the names don't even exist.
Intern at a Nithya Raman-funded NGO filling out the ballots. The bank vault is wide open. The cameras have been removed, and there's no way to count the money. Now, for those of you who wanted me to fight the election, for those of you who thought I was quitting, or I was bought off to step aside and quietly disappear, I'll remind you, there's a smart way to handle these things and a dumb way. Evidence is not proof. I don't say things without proof. Now, anyone saying that there's no evidence of fraud is lying. There's tons of evidence, and I was the one who got it. All those videos that you saw of homeless people admitting that they were paid for their vote, where do you think they came from? Immediately after the big spike of votes came in for Nithya, I sent my team down to Skid Row to collect evidence. We were warned by some very well-connected people that this was happening, so we acted on it immediately. But if you want to end this fraud, doing protests and bitching about stolen elections won't get you anything. You need the fraudsters to start catching charges. For that to happen, you need proof. That's what investigators do. They turn evidence into proof with a robust investigation. You think it's a coincidence that 20 FBI agents suddenly descended on Skid Row to investigate vote fraud? Why do you think they were there? You don't get evidence by going to rallies or storming the ballot processing center. You get evidence by doing real work. And the first rule of criminal investigation is you do not talk about it. Here's the reality. It's too late for my campaign. A lot of people refuse to accept that, but I can. I told you all to get your ass out and vote. Tell your friends to vote. Vote enough to beat the cheat. We didn't beat it, but that doesn't mean I quit. I don't know how to quit.
He never knew when to quit.
My goal isn't to try and salvage the campaign, just like my advocacy.
In terms of beating the cheat out there, they would have somehow kept coming up with more and more votes. They didn't want him in the finals there because when it comes to the general election, they'll only have Democrats showing up. Republicans won't bother, and they know that up and down the ticket. It'll hurt Hill there.
in the wake of the Palisades fire wasn't about my own home. It's too late for me. This is about you. This is about the next one. It's about exposing this corrupt rigged system and changing it for the next election. If I have to be the kamikaze pilot to finally get this fixed, so be it. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. The right way isn't easy, but it ends with commie animals and handcuffs. I will restore faith in our elections if it's the last thing I do. And to all you fraudsters out there, we've been watching you, and justice is coming.
The messaging here is just pitch perfect. You don't have to prove the fraud. They make it impossible to prove. You need to prove the systems are fraudulent. And again, we sound like a broken record here, but 7 months ago, we went out to LA and showed the homeless industrial complex rigging elections. We laid this all out, how they would harvest votes, how it was impossible to track who's a legitimate voter, and how they were going to steal whatever election they wanted to using LA homeless industrial complex. I've never seen anyone this talented at communicating these primary issues to the future of our republic. Critical. And that is why so many people are saying perhaps Spencer Pratt will be on the other side of that desk someday. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's your boy Benny. Keep fighting.
All right, I'm going to do a little bit on the fire since both Pat and I are in the fire areas of what's going on with that. It's kind of pretty bad. Here we go.
The air 100 million Americans are breathing right now is 10 times more toxic than normal pollution, and it's spreading east by the hour. Here is what happened. Over 830 wildfires are burning across Canada right now, and today, the wind shifted, pushing thick walls of that smoke straight across the border into the United States. Look at Duluth, Minnesota. Its air quality score hit 902 today. Anything above 300 is hazardous for every single person. Duluth is more than triple that. And it is racing east. Air quality alerts now stretch from Minnesota all the way to New York City, covering the entire states of Wisconsin and Michigan. Detroit, Milwaukee, Boston, and Philadelphia are all under it, and the heaviest smoke reaches Washington, D.C. by tomorrow. And here is why it is so toxic. The particles in wildfire smoke are small enough to slip past your lungs and enter your bloodstream, damaging your heart and nervous system. And this is only part of it. Right now, roughly 4 dozen large fires are burning across 15 states, from Minnesota to California. They have already burned an area larger than Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon combined. Drought and record heat.
Did you notice that it's like California, Colorado, Minnesota, all blue states?
He turned an entire continent into fuel, and officials say this could burn until the snow comes back.
Now, when it comes to California, China's got a lot of money in there, and they want that property. They're driving the people off the property. The government is part of it up there in Canada. Watch this. Now, the trees and the plants, they love that, but not humans. Okay, now here's a little bit of Canada for you. They don't clear cut. They won't cut things back. They don't do the path things. They won't let loggers go in and cut some of the trees down. So there's a lot of underbrush and all that crap. They're all environmentalists. Don't touch the trees. They burn down and kill us.
This could potentially overtake us here. This is getting a little scary.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Okay. Yeah, this is...
Okay, y'all need to hurry up here. Like, seriously, we're encased in flames now.
You guys gotta go backwards. Go.
Long-term exposure to this can definitely kill you. These people, what they've got there, that's really serious. That's dangerous. They're going to probably die.
Hello, Jody. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you there. I'm telling them you were notching up.
Yeah, this has got to move fucking quick here. Holy crap. Oh, that's all right. This kind of burnt off, so we'll be okay now.
They look to be on a boat.
Went across. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, yeah. Look over there.
We are
guys.
Well, Pat, the wind's supposed to shift, so it's going to get worse again tomorrow. And I guess we got a good chance of rain, so the rain will take a lot of these dust particles out of the air.
Got a light now or what? Did you guys get that light? Oh yeah, they're clipping. Whew! That's a meat and a half, eh?
That's a train going through the fires. I don't know how long you could breathe in that stuff, actually, to be honest. Okay, I'm going to go back to a little humor on the election stuff. I thought I'd play that. Hey, Marianne.
Work harder, faster. We must meet the production target. Move. Disinformation must flow.
We're on it, sir.
Print more ballots. Ship to America now. This is for the future. Work harder. Work harder.
It's exactly how it is, actually. I played that one. I haven't played this one yet.
No! Stay away!
Okay, I'm going to do a little bit. The White House, back when Biden was in, talking about the election thing, and she had said before when Trump had beaten Hillary that there was election stealing back then. Watch her answer now.
So if we're all in agreement that it is incorrect to say the 2020 election was stolen, what about the 2016 election?
Look, I'm not going to go back into history.
It was a stolen election.
It was stolen.
Stolen. He's an illegitimate president. He's an illegitimate president.
You know, pretending to be president.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he didn't.
1/3 of Clinton supporters say Trump election is not legitimate.
I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win.
You are absolutely right.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee.
And no one was banned from Facebook or YouTube for saying that Clinton, the election had been stolen against Clinton. But when we were saying that about Biden stealing the election against Trump, then we got banned and censored and kicked off of Facebook and YouTube.
And you can have the election stolen from you.
The 2016 election was stolen. Got a nicer way to say that?
Say Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our elections.
A little louder, please.
Russia hacked our election. That was a 9/11 scale event.
This was a kind of cyber 9/11. American institutions.
9/11.
Yes.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia, of course, hacked our election here.
Half of Clinton's voters believe the conspiracy theory that Russia hacked.
I didn't mute myself. I have a lot to show you, so
Election day votes.
We know that they were into voting rolls, actual interference with the elections themselves. We know it happened.
Despite no credible evidence, 67% of Democrats believe Russia tampered with vote tallies.
Hacking the U.S. election.
Hacking the U.S. election.
Russia hacked our election.
The Russians hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russian hacking of our election.
Hacking of our election.
Russia hacked our elections.
Russia hacked our elections.
Stolen election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
The universal assessment that Russia hacked our election in 2016.
Foreign governments hacked our elections.
Most young Americans consider Donald Trump an illegitimate president.
He's an illegitimate president.
Why is he illegitimate? He just won an election.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind. That's it.
I absolutely agree.
Experts urge Clinton Kemp to challenge election results.
We will see how illegitimate his victory actually was. He's an illegitimate president.
Russia hacked our election. Russians hacking our election.
Hacked our election.
Russia hacking our
I
election.
don't see the president-elect as a legitimate president.
Trump is an illegitimate president who stole the election.
He is not a president.
He's illegitimate.
Actually, we're going to show that China's part of it, and they've been stealing elections, and that's been senator races and local races.
And my biggest fear is that he's going to do it again with the help of Vlad, his best pal. It's terrifying.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate?
Hillary Clinton voters called to overturn election results.
More than 4 million people have already signed a petition on change.org, calling for the electors of the Electoral College to, quote, ignore their states, votes, and cast their ballots for Secretary Clinton.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016.
We are the victims of a bloodless coup. He didn't win the general election.
Yo, Electoral College, make Hillary Clinton president. Period.
Donald Trump is an illegitimate president.
Illegitimate president.
Dems don't accept Trump as a legitimate president.
This wasn't on the level.
This election was not on the level.
I don't think he's a legitimate president.
Our election wasn't legit. He got his victory from cheating.
Yes, Trump cheated. Trump cheated the 2016 election.
He's an illegitimate president.
No validity, no credibility.
And because of that,
Anger at what some see as an illegitimate president.
It will not be a peaceful change of power.
a number of incidents turned violent. Protesters hurled trash cans, flash bombs, and objects at police.
Several officers injured.
Protesters threw rocks and smashed windows, leading to more confrontations, injuries, and arrests.
The chaotic scene just
But that isn't an insurrection? Come on.
blocks outside the secure area of the inauguration.
If denying election results is extreme now,
Yeah.
why was
So
it then?
let's be really clear. That comparison that you made is just ridiculous.
protests against Donald Trump's election victory surged overnight, and some became violent.
Violence erupted on the streets of Portland during the second straight day of protests over the election of Donald Trump. Some protesters launched fireworks and other projectiles at police. Several people began vandalizing cars.
Some demonstrators smashed store windows. Protesters faced off with police in other cities too, including Oakland, Denver, and Minneapolis.
Violent protests continuing now for the third day in a row. Some 4,000 angry demonstrators over Trump's
Commies are always the violent ones.
election victory taking to the streets,
Officers confronted thousands of protesters in what police called a riot.
setting fires, taking their frustrations out on cars and buildings. People threw projectiles at officers and damaged property as well.
I threw a trash can at them because I'm angry.
One woman driving through was attacked as someone used a bat to smash her windshield. They are undermining our democratic process, everything that we stand for.
Yep. Here's a little bit of Joe Rogan.
Ask you this.
Yeah.
Why is it that large population centers, like places like Los Angeles and New York, are almost always run by the Democrats?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about? First of all, what happened with the last election in Los Angeles, the primary, I think was
crazy.
So super sus.
Yes,
and
it
here's
is.
why it's super sus. Not just super sus that Spencer Pratt, who was in second place, got overtaken by Nithya Raman in the mail-in ballots, but that the mail-in ballots also passed a tax hike. The people voted to pay more taxes.
Yep.
In a state where you have the highest,
The highest
taxes.
taxes. That's right.
They're like, we don't pay enough. That is insane. Then when you have direct evidence that they were recruiting homeless people.
That's right.
And they were getting homeless people and giving them cigarettes and cash. There's evidence of this, to use their address and mail in ballots.
Yeah, I would be the Californian Joe who wakes up in the morning and says, you know what? I'm going to go and vote for higher taxes.
I don't
pay enough taxes.
I feel like we could fix this if I just pay 5%
more taxes. The crazy thing about it too is it's that, okay, so after the initial ballots all came in, it was Karen Bass was number 1, Spencer Pratt was right behind her, and then number 3, whatever this woman's name is, Nithya Raman. Okay, so you would expect the mail-in ballots to be more or less like the original ballots in terms of 1, 2, and 3. I'm not saying Spencer Pratt's going to win the mail-in ballots, but it just so happened that the third place person in relative terms did a lot better than the first and second place person.
Disproportionately better.
Such that the Republican was actually kicked out of the race so that there's not actually a real election in California. That to me was the crazy part. It's like you were
it's all part of their plan.
Designing the vote share in order to kick Pratt out and put the third person into second place. That to me is like very, very bizarre. Because what is the theory of the mail-in vote that is somehow like so much more pro Nithya relative to Karen Bass?
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense. Why would it be?
Yeah.
Why would it be? I mean, Karen Bass was ahead by every metric.
Yeah. But I mean,
this lady's going to defend the Republic.
President Trump just dropped the hammer on the biggest lie we've been told for years, that our elections are secure. He released declassified intelligence community assessments detailing that our adversaries have the proven capability to compromise our voting systems. He laid out a CIA-reported plot by the Maduro regime in Venezuela to digitally rig elections by altering vote totals in ways that could sail right through audits undetected. China carried out what amounts to the largest compromise of election data in history. 220 million American voter files stuffed with names, addresses, phone numbers, and party preferences. Deep state insiders inside our own intelligence agencies suppressed it and hid it from the president and the American people. FBI files expose a Democrat get-out-the-vote operation in Michigan where canvassers admitted forging signatures, registering ghosts, and cashing gift cards for fake applications. Biden's DOJ buried it for years, and now Director Patel has been directed to investigate and prosecute. DHS identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens registered to vote in federal elections, and that's the lowball number because Democrat-run states refused to fully share their files. The system Trump described is deliberately broken, and it's letting foreign meddling, buried fraud, and ineligible votes erode our republic. And just as these bombshell documents dropped, former CIA officer Gary Berntsen confirmed what patriots like Patrick Byrne, Sidney Powell, and General Flynn have been exposing for years. Venezuela-linked rigging technology, Smartmatic's roots under Chavez and Maduro, the technical ways to steal elections, and the deep state suppression that protected it. The timing lines up perfectly, the receipts are out, and the excuses are gone. Now let me bring this home to where it hits hardest, right here in states like New Jersey. For years, New Jersey families have been told not to believe their own eyes. The roads are jammed, the schools are overcrowded, housing prices are through the roof, hospitals are swamped, and the budgets are bleeding. Hardworking taxpayers are grinding with multiple jobs while the system bends over backward for those who broke the law to get here. Assemblyman Paul Kinitra just blew the lid off of the fact that at least 100,000 illegal immigrants are now holding New Jersey's driver's licenses. That is 100,000 rewards for lawbreaking handed out by politicians who put open borders over American citizens. And here's the national danger. In New Jersey, those driver's licenses aren't just for the roads, they feed straight into our voter registration system through the Motor Vehicle Commission with pathetic citizenship checks. Non-citizens get licenses, social security numbers, and too often end up on the rolls. The New Jersey GOP Election Integrity Task Force has already found hundreds of non-citizens registered to vote in the Garden State, with dozens who illegally cast ballots, sometimes across multiple elections, and real DOJ cases right here in New Jersey, like the non-citizens charged with voting in federal elections in 2020, 2022, and 2024. This is exactly the pipeline Trump just exposed on the national stage. Blue states like New Jersey have resisted full voter roll transparency, and weak verification let the chaos in. Every ineligible vote dilutes yours. This fight isn't partisan, it's American. The anger you feel across this country isn't about politics anymore, it's about fairness. It's about taking our republic back for the citizens who built it. We the people will defend our borders. We the people will defend our ballots. Secure both or lose everything. God bless New Jersey, God bless every patriot watching, and God bless the United States of America.
For everyone that cares about voter ID and election integrity in this country, this video is for you. So yesterday, I was told by House leadership that they could not add the voter ID.
Oh, shoot, I was talking and I had my mic muted. Anna Paluna's trying to get something in some of the bills so they can get the SAFE Act through other ways, you know.
Plus proof of citizenship into the base text of the NDA. Why do we want it in the NDA? Because it makes it harder, if it's written into the bill, for the Senate to strip it out. They said that we can't do this because it's not germane. Meanwhile, here you see these pieces of legislation that they've done this Congress that you could argue had items that were considered not germane to the bill. Not to mention, I would argue that voter ID plus proof of citizenship, mind you, a 90-10 issue, and very important for our frontline members, literally one of the most popular issues in the country, is incredibly important to national security. What are you guys talking about? But the idea that we shouldn't try, the idea that we should offer a MIRV, which here's where it failed with the Farm Bill and E15, yes, because it just happened, which is why I'm trying to deliver a win and not a failure. The question is, why is leadership fighting so hard against it?
Well, guys, we were right all along, and Donald Trump just confirmed it on national news. And you know your boys got the documents already and have already been coming through. And honestly, guys, it's much steeper than we even anticipated, going back all the way to even 2004. Now, there's many documents that have been released, but of course, because I grew up in Michigan, Michigan has a stronghold in my heart, and everybody knows about Detroit. But the thing about it is I dive deep into that file alone, and it's not just Detroit, it's statewide. Now, of course, it's well known about what happened in Detroit or Wayne County with the boarding of the windows and just the blatant, obvious covering up of what happened. But like I said, this extends even further than just Detroit. This extends all the way over to even the middle and west coast of Michigan, from Lansing all the way over to Muskegon. We have proof that these individuals were aware of a ballot harvesting for hire scheme that was going on, where individuals confirmed through interviews on how much they were making. They were literally paying people to register to vote. And within those registrations, they started to find that there weren't even real people at some points. And we also found out that within these documents,
not surprised. Watch when I get to the last video tonight.
Talked about specific people that worked with Joe Biden and on his team that actually facilitated or worked with these people that were conducting the ballot harvesting, the fake registrations, or just paying people blatantly illegally to register to vote. Now, as I continue to go through these files more, I'll bring more to you guys, because you know that back when this all started, this was what I did on social media. So I've been waiting for this for years. So I'll be starting with Michigan, but hopefully we can dive into others as the series continues. But stay tuned, and I'll be dropping more for you guys.
Yes, Nate. If you're not following Nate, you really should be. I'll tag him below. Do you want the truth? Do you want to know what really has been happening? Follow Nate.
Now watch how CNN is reporting this. Hopefully I got my mic on. My mic's on. Okay. Watch how CNN's reporting this.
Bizarre, in fact, that China, is perceived to have, tried to help him or tried to help others steal the 2020 election. But there's no mention of what they did in 2024. I mean, if they were so successful in 2020, where were they when he won? he doesn't have any. He doesn't have any dispute
because Elon Musk was able to block him from doing it.
It's about elections that he won, and I know for a fact that in 2018,
several months ago, I did a video on that.
The president was informed and briefed on Chinese activity with regard to the 2016 election and their interest in the 2020 election, and the 2021 intelligence report post-election that's statutorily required was delivered in March of 2021 and makes plain that no foreign actor took any action that was consequential in any way with regard to a single vote.
Yeah, which I mean, that's the bottom.
God's sakes, I gotta see these guys handcuffed and put in jail.
Line, and then there's the point which you're raising, and I have seen, which is it is sort of odd to sort of imagine that that when Biden was president, he couldn't rig it when he was. Anyway, it just the whole thing kind of just defies belief. David, the man leading Trump's task force on declassifying documents on elections and other issues is a man named John Solomon. And today there was a really interesting exchange. He essentially admitted to a reporter right after the speech that none of it adds up. Okay, let me just play it.
I only know the intelligence community has zero evidence that someone has flipped that a foreign power flipped a vote in 2020, 22, or 24.
All right, David. So I just have to say, he's the one who supposedly led the task force that led to the speech last night. And he came out and point blank says that the intelligence community has zero evidence that a foreign power flipped a vote in 20.
Pat, it's because China wants to use that land, and they're buying off the government in China, the leadership in Canada. That's why they want the land. Because the last fires last year and the year before, not one person has been able to get their land back. Not one person.
2022 or 24, which is
they're passing laws so those people can't move back into that land. And China wants the resources there, the oil. They want other things that are underneath the ground that they're going to mine for.
It's of course what the declassified report concluded, right? But he's saying I've seen the classified, and it's the same conclusion. What does this do to Trump's standing? When he goes and gives a primetime address to the nation, and the guy who was in charge of basically doing all the backup says it's bogus.
Yeah, well,
they clipped a little part out of the whole thing.
Well, that is a rational analysis, but I think that people are accustomed to this with the president. My mind goes back. Everybody's saying, well, he didn't object when he won in 2016. The weird thing is he did. He was upset because he lost a popular vote by, I think, 3 million. Right. And he impaneled a task force, including led by the vice president, to find out where the fraud was that led to this mistake. And they worked on this for a year and then had to disband because they couldn't find any fraud. I mean, this is a running story with him. But my concern, Aaron, isn't, yes, I agree with Ty.
Yeah, Canada's going to own it, but they're going to lease it to China. China wants the use of it.
This analysis of what motivates the president to reject any kind of...
Quite a while back, last year when the fires were on, I did a video live on that.
Negative verdict from voters. But, the concern I have is what this signals for the next 4 months. And I feel it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride. And you could hear Secretary Mullen, suggesting that he's going to...
You can put the the proof right down in front of their face, and they're definitely still going to fight it.
Bully state officials. I really think the president's creating a pretext, either for intervention on the part of the government, calling an emergency and intervening in these elections in ways that could be really pernicious, or in alibying for a loss if the Republicans lose in November. But I'm afraid it's the first. One adjective nobody's ever used about Donald Trump is subtle. Okay, he's been signaling this for months now. He's been upping his rhetoric about rigged elections. He talked about it in California. Now he had this ridiculous speech last night. So he's doing this for a reason.
Yeah, John. Yeah, exactly about the ostriches and all that. They totally are corrupt. They're so corrupt, it's ridiculous. There's more
One
CNN.
major point of tension between the U.S. and China that will only grow in the coming months is concerns about China meddling in U.S. elections. Listen to our conversation on that topic.
How about the proof of them meddling?
I want to ask you about a commitment that CNN has reported President Xi made to President Biden when they met in November. We've reported that he told President Biden that China would not interfere in the upcoming presidential elections in the United States. But since then, there have been reports of online Chinese accounts that have falsely mimicked Trump supporters. Do you believe that these accounts violate President Xi's commitment?
What I can tell you is this. President Biden was very clear about that with President Xi, and I repeated that.
Yeah, Pat and John, that was about the bird flu. That's why they killed all the ostriches, supposedly. They were trying to drive that person that had the ostrich farm off the land. They were bankrupting them to drive them off of it.
Today in my meetings.
You repeated what?
That any interference by China in our election is something that we're looking very carefully at and is totally unacceptable to us. Look, it's something we're tracking very carefully. I can't speak to these specific reports. I can say that as a general matter, we've been very clear with China, don't do it.
But they're not violating the commitment yet, as far as you can tell?
Well, again, I'd have to look at the specific reports that you're referring to, but we have seen, generally speaking, evidence of attempts to influence and arguably interfere, and we want to make sure that that's cut off as quickly as possible.
Now, it is noteworthy that he said that there is evidence of China attempting to influence and arguably interfere in U.S. elections just months after President Biden and President Xi had that conversation. It's clear that China is not heeding those warning calls from the United States. He also said that it's the concern that China is seeking to mirror what Russia is doing in terms of influence efforts in the United States, trying to sow division that are already apparent in the U.S.
Evidence that they tried to influence and maybe interfere in the elections. Terrific to have you here, Kylie. Thank you so much for sharing this breaking news.
Yeah, they didn't want us to get better with the whole spike protein stuff that was in the eggs. That's why they were trying to end it. All right, I got to find the right spot on this video. Hold on.
Date who these people are and make a duplicate ID. Maybe there were exchanges to date who these people are and make a duplicate. She says, yeah, let me shoot you an email.
Here we
Thanks.
Go. Let me go back a little bit.
From proof of citizenship. And 3, no, Trump came in and started to say,
there does not seem to be any political momentum.
Here we go. I'll go
some
from
of the
about
bills
there.
that
It's not quite the right
under
spot.
consideration right now.
It's close.
Trying to keep these machines off the internet or trying to establish some sort of certifiable
This guy's really good.
Paper ballot system or any of the other things that have been proposed. And so the combination of seeing the incredible vulnerabilities that we saw on display in real time at this event and the lack of institutional action around the security of the vote, all of that made for an extremely alarming weekend.
Extremely alarming weekend from NBC News. Weird. And then we saw Trump come out last night and say the exact same thing. But since he's saying it, they don't want to make a report about it. And he actually had classified documents. These were just a bunch of hacker bros in there who were fiddling with the machines and were able, apparently, to exploit them. And we've seen this before because even Secretary, so-called Jenna Griswold, put the password to her systems on the internet and didn't face any repercussions for that, deployed essentially an election SWAT team to go out days before the election, open up the machines, change the software, change what was actually validated, went through logic and accuracy testing. She goes in, manipulates everything, seals everything back up, and then escapes liability for that while she still screams and shouts about Tina Peters not being in prison for long enough. So we're happy to see this. I think that Mark Wayne Mullen and the strategy, which is to say you must comply if you want that federal cash, will be helpful and hopefully incentivize certain states to come and actually support these efforts. But as we know, many of them, I think they'd rather just stick with their election fraud systems. They'd rather not really validate exactly what they're doing and allow the grift to continue in the gray area. So what if they lose a little bit of money? They'll have perpetual power. And if this continues, if we have an election problem And every year it kind of gets a little bit more problematic because more data leaks, the Chinese gobble up more. We've got more leftists, more illegals who are registering. We've got a bunch of kind of institutional structural problems. It's going to compound and get worse every year unless we fix it. So hopefully this is the start of something useful. We're happy to see Mark Wayne is on it at the direction of the president. And so we'll see what else happens very soon. Now let's talk about the lady called Nikki Flores, who is this woman right here, who has now been outed as a deep stater, 100%. Nikki Flores, the deep stater who said that she was now acting as a shadow government, has been exposed. President Trump released internal documents that are now declassified, showing her text messages with other people where she admitted it outright. And we're learning more about this woman and exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes. But if you missed the actual exchange, in this segment, we were talking about these messages back and forth.
She's FBI. Now watch some of these messages. She's saying that she's going to be part of the shadow government taken over under Trump.
Between a person called Nikki L. Flores, the woman that you just saw right here. She was also asked a bunch of questions by Matt Gaetz, which we'll review, but there were exchanges going on, and this all centered around a report. The report was very damning for the current deep state. They did not want Trump to get their hands on any of this material. And at the bottom of this one declassified document, you can see we've got a bunch of details here. But this was about a recall of an intelligence product that went out and was going to make its way up into the president's hands and to other people who can ultimately make a decision about this. And they stole it back. They recalled it and they prevented any future products that are in this vein from actually going up through the proper chains. They bypassed everything to make it go through FBI HQ so that they could have a veto power. And so we've got 3 statutes that we've got queued up here that we think are relevant criminal charges for this behavior. Of course, we'll see what you say about it. But here was just the subject. There was a substantive recall of this report. Chinese government production and export of fraudulent U.S. votes for presidential candidate Joe Biden. This was a product that came out from a Chinese source who had a sub-source, and there were people inside the FBI who thought this was very important, and we need to bring this to attention and address it. So once this went out, then they went through a meltdown, and they wanted to recall this one product. And we'll take a look at more of the mechanics here, but the short of it is that this woman was texting about this. Someone sends her a message. Good morning, sunshine. Do you have any reads ahead for your FITIF update? I'll have to leave early to go to Nakasone Prep. Should be fun. She says, yeah, let me shoot you an email. Thanks. Unrelated, do you have a serial number for that report that you mentioned to me last week? The damning one that talks about the Chinese ballots. Saying, she responds, it's recalled. Okay, I pulled it back out. We put this in the binder and then I pulled it back out because it was going to be damaging. Okay, talking to the PDP briefer, that's why I'm asking. She gives him the number. She's also asking if there was a revision on the Russian one. Yeah, there should have been one, a revision. I haven't seen it. My team's not in yet. Okay, I looked in our system, but I didn't see it. But the system I use to look at your reports is not friendly, so it might be there somewhere. Yeah, it doesn't look like they pushed the revision out yet. She says, for F's sake here, potty mouth. Okay, the director has the original in his book this morning. She says, great. Hashtag fun never ends. Seriously, she says, we're pushing out a note today to all FOs, field offices, that all...
Because it wasn't fitting their narrative. They knew the truth.
Election-related reports must come through us, FITIF and the HQ. So if there's anything else that says the Chinese helped Joe Biden win and brought in fraudulent IDs, which we validated well before we got these documents. There are literal reports on Border Patrol's website. Right now, you can go look them up. Thousands, tens of thousands of fake IDs coming in at the port of entry in Detroit, Chicago, O'Hare airports, and more. They caught them. They didn't really know what these were for. The reports say that the IDs actually worked since the Chinese stole 220 million personal records so they could create actual names or go and just validate who these people are and make a duplicate ID. Maybe go take those IDs, go register in another state, vote in that other state. The person who is the subject has their identity stolen, would have no idea, identify low propensity voters and more. Tens of thousands of ballots came in. They just chalked it up. They didn't know. At Border Patrol, like, I don't know, maybe these are, college kids who just want to go drink at bars somewhere. So then he says, that's good. Okay, we don't want anything bypassing Christopher Wray. We don't want anything deviating past what we want to veto before it gets to the president. This is the damning text. He says, that's good. Like, perfect. Yeah, because this is crazy. She says, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. Wow. I'm running a shadow government across the FBI. And there are various statutes talking about concealing material facts. And if you're doing that, that's a crime. You've got an obligation.
Did you catch that part about her saying she's running the shadow government, controlling what gets to the president on information from the FBI?
As a government employee, you've sworn an oath, I would presume, to not do this. And she's violating multiple statutes. We'll come back to those and apply. But here is what this dude says in response. Don't know who this is, but he's a material witness to these crimes, saying, you do what you have to do. Smiley face, okay? You do what you have to do. Run your shadow government and good luck. Hang in there. I told someone you just need to get through December. There are a couple of weeks in November and December where it is a ghost town. She says, no joke, I want to take like a 2-week vacay in January. My FBI coup is a lot of pressure on me. I'd like to go have some mojitos down in China. My goal is to take a month off. This guy, I am scheduled to finish here June 21. Then I plan to take July off. That's my goal. She says, don't leave. And I wonder what's going on here, because who says that to a coworker? Good morning, sunshine. Like, I know you could say that, like, good morning, sunshine, like in general. But if you say that to a person, is that kind of like a lovey-dovey phrase, like, hello, sunshine, good morning, bright eyes, something like that? I wonder if these two are indicting each other. So no joke, I want to take a week off. Don't leave, frowny. Since Alan can't sit in on the brief, can you let me know how the convo goes about my reports that I'm now retracting and recalling? Yes, we'll let you know. Grazie. If your bosses have a 9:30, suspect the meeting will be short. We are only up to blank. It's almost 8:30. Good Lord. Yeah, I had a few things, but I'll just pass. This always happens when I actually have a few things that might be useful to the group. And so the whole report was recalled. Now you can see one agent from FIDIF identified an open source report about Border Patrol seizing fraudulent driver's licenses. We've talked about it many times. Tens of thousands of IDs came in. They emailed the Albany report to the China unit. Then the China unit informed this person about the seizures, discussed this with someone else, recommending for others and future leads to investigate it. Then they issued a second lead about this story, about the IDs coming in that are actually being exploited by the Chinese. And then they obtained information via others, which identified the China-based sender names and addresses for the shipment packages, and noted that Border Patrol does not maintain a list of names for fraudulent driver's licenses, as they say the majority of those are just for underage kids who want to drink. Then they sent another email containing information, and more emails went out, and then somebody authors a report covering the lead, and they identify who it is. And then of course, that was just the initiation of how it was created. And then they ultimately withdrew it. Okay, this is the Albany report is what this document is called. Goes through a bunch of subsources. Finally, someone sends it out, and then they recall the emails. People are responding to concerns. Hey, and then finally they just block it. Nope, this report is not authoritative. You need to go back and do some additional work.
How do they recall it? Is it trying to hide what they were saying in it? They're hiding what they're doing.
Meanwhile, the lady who's helping to facilitate a lot of this is saying, I'm running literally a shadow government. This guy, as we saw, he said, you know, the fact that you want to recall this, like Christopher Wray went out and testified that the Chinese are not interfering, this would actually directly contradict Christopher Wray. And so Christopher Wray and the FBI were essentially just the same as Bill Barr was. Okay, they didn't look, or they did look and they knew what was happening and they didn't follow up on it, or worse, they actively concealed material facts from the literal president of the United States. We know they hate him, but it's not their right to retract information from him. So all of this is documented here in the emails and a back and forth. Of course, we covered that at length. Here's how it was recalled. You see, ultimately, boom, more recalls, more emails. And then someone else says, Flores right here. One person states to Flores via email that should never have gone out and then recommends a recall. Then Flores is asked via email that he asked Albany to recall. Then Flores replies that she concurs and the shadow government jumps in. And then, of course, it is recalled. Says here, they'll require once again, boom. She says everything's going to come through our offices so that we can veto everybody. Okay, it's all there on exactly how it went down. Then, boom, it is recalled. The IIR is recalled by the CRO. And so they knew exactly what was going on even before the election occurred and didn't tell anybody about it. So that woman's name is Nikki Flores. And we've got more information about her. And a lot of this came over from our friends at Marco Polo and Oversight, who've already been all over this lady. Here's a background on her. So Nikki Lee Flores, courtesy of Marco Polo, 501c3 on X and at .org and Substack. They say Flores, she has been involved as a Democrat hatchet person for a long time. Flores, along with her colleague Benavides, provided false information to senators about the Bidens. Weird. And their foreign business dealings, specifically Flores, who met multiple times with Joe Biden's then chief counsel in the West Wing called Dana Remus. So they get Joe Biden installed, and then she goes out there and is working with him. They were embroiled in Joe's classified documents. She briefed a U.S. Senate committee about how legitimate inquiries into the Bidens, if you look into the Bidens, that's Russian disinformation. Just like the other intelligence idiots, the 51 of those people who signed on that letter said, this is all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation operations. And Miranda Devine was on this back in 2025 in April. She said Nikki Flores was one of the agents who gave Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley a bogus defensive briefing in August 2020, undermining their Hunter Biden investigation. Okay, so in 2020, August, she's covering up for Chinese influence and then blaming the Russians as she's covering up for Joe Biden. Said it was all a Russian disinformation operation. And then somebody leaked about that. So she is protecting Joe while disarming Trump as to the truth of what's happening in the elections. It's bad. So we know more about her, and what we've seen here, the president actually called this out. And so if you missed the full speech last night, let's listen to what he had to say about this, and then we'll learn even more about her and take a look at the criminal charges.
The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who
Nikki Flores nailed. And the president was referring to this actual Albany report. And this is what the underlying report that was ultimately recalled said. The source obtained information from a subsource who claimed they got the information from Chinese government officials. Okay, so the chain comes directly from the top of China. In late 2020, the Chinese government had produced a large amount of fraudulent U.S. driver's licenses. As we saw in other reports, they literally work like the barcode on the back scanned and validated against the Michigan system, secretly exported to the U.S. The driver's licenses would allow tens of thousands of Chinese students and immigrants sympathetic to the CCP to vote for Joe Biden, despite not being eligible to vote. China had also concluded that private U.S. data from TikTok and other IDs and addresses would allow the Chinese governments to make actual real people and create fraudulent licenses. These driver's licenses were to include true ID numbers, true addresses of citizens, making them even difficult to detect. China planned to use the fraudulent driver's licenses to account for tens of thousands of mail-in votes, and you only needed about 50,000 votes to flip the election, or to at least draw it to a draw. So they say addresses are not in TikTok. We know you can just buy something on TikTok. It can scan your whole basic phone. Many detailed intelligence reports said don't even install the app because it can access everything on your device. So if you have your address anywhere, it's scraping it. And if you take a picture of your driver's license or something like that, buy a product in the TikTok store, your address is now in the hands of the CCP. Now, Trump also commented on this message. And once again, people are fighting over what Trump can see. They do not want to give him information that validates his concerns about a rigged election. This one coming in after the election, saying, I think I mentioned to you before that there is some pending blank that makes it clear that China has been caught conducting election influence. At least that's how it was described to us. But as you scroll up, you'll see that the NSA, quote, deliberately massaged our one pending brief to avoid any direct links to this election. He says, what are they doing over there? And here's what that original email looked like. Down here, we don't know the names of these people, don't know why they have not been released to us, maybe because they're still working inside the government. The other lady, Nikki Flores, is not in the government. All blank has heard, received nothing. This person says, we have deliberately massaged our one pending brief to the president to avoid any direct links to the election. Okay, put a pin in that because we're going to look at some criminal charges. The massive report that we have been waiting on has been chopped up into 13 reports that likely will not get.
Got to turn my mic on. Both China and North Korea.
It out until late next week. Many of them all will be cross-posted into blank or downgraded to blank so that they can be more readily incorporated into the 45-day piece if needed. Okay, we're going to splice it up. We're not going to allow the full context to come out in one time, and we'll just, give you like a report a day until late next week. And massaged it in order to get the right outcome. So then they say, that's ridiculous. They say, I haven't heard from China and the China group. My impression is they've been waiting for the new brief to update the story. Now, I don't want to preempt any of this, but with the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment in mind, I really think we need to comment on how the new information relates to the election story or not. They'll expect that from us. And we think this new info is highly relevant, though I realize we're in the minority here. Now, I understand you're trying to navigate various perspectives, so happy to discuss this. And then they really respond with shock. saying deliberately massaging our one brief? What are you talking about? While this is important for your report, I'm sure, it also has the potential to be a near-term issue. This is a really good example, but far from the only one, of what I've been raising since the summer, that the IC is deliberately avoiding mentioning a connection to elections for non-substantive reasons, okay? There's no reason. Like, if the source comes back and you're like, oh, the source is bad, the subsource is a hack, and maybe he's like a Hillary Clinton campaign propagandist, Michael Steele, they used his report and put that in a classified annex in an ICA. That should have never been in there. Okay, so a bad source is not really a good reason, according to their own standards, to dump anything. But here, they didn't have a substantive reason. He was a legitimate subsource who was getting info from the Chinese government. Obviously, since the blank isn't released yet, there isn't a PDB, so maybe it won't end up being an issue, but this is a highly irregular way of doing things, especially as someone who's trying to raise tradecraft and substantive objections to the mainline analysis and isn't getting our work incorporated or even mentioned. Okay, it's concealment of material facts. We're going to come back on the charges here in a moment. But now they want to know more. Who would be the decision maker here to reconnect the thread on election security to what is about to go out? Like, this is important. You're releasing information and you're not including a key thread on what needs to be discussed. It's shameful. Now, remember that not soon after this, back in 2024, March 26, these emails were coming out around right after the election, 2020. Then they fast forward a little bit. And then the Biden people start to say, oh, yeah, the Chinese are hacking us. Weird. Nectar Gone at CNN, who's now saying Trump is filled with lies, says China hits back at the US and the UK because the US and the UK sanctioned them on espionage hacks as coordinated pressure on Beijing goes. All right, so you get the story. We're not paying for CNN. But they were talking about that some time ago when it is convenient for them. And they were probably trying to set up a, Chinese stole the election from Kamala narrative. But here's more from the Oversight Project, more details on Nikki Flores. She is a weaponized FBI agent. She's no longer there anymore. My understanding is she now works for Microsoft. Perfect. Who organized a shadow government. Now, she was a big player in their criminal referral against Christopher Wray. Oversight Project's amazing. We just did a great interview with Mike Howell, the president over there. They made a criminal referral against Christopher Wray for lying about foreign election interference. And as was just documented in those emails, Christopher Wray was telling Congress that there wasn't a problem with foreign interference. And they said, yeah, there was. And that they were actually reverting the language of what was going out based on the fact that it contradicted Christopher Wray's testimony. And there were a lot of concerns about that, as we talked about in one of these emails right here, right?
So all of the FBI and all the agencies had to cover for Christopher Wray and all the lies he was telling.
You're contradicting Christopher Wray's testimony. There's evidence that you guys are discussing that his testimony to Congress is filled with lies. And so you don't want us to present any evidence that might undermine what he lied about. So they covered it up. Oversight is saying that's a crime and it deserves a criminal referral. Saying Flores served as the deputy assistant director of the counter intel branch from 18 to 22. And then guess what? After she did her dirty work, she got a promotion. And then in May 2022, they made her the intelligence analyst in charge of the intelligence division of the Washington.
I wonder how that works. Get a promotion, a lot more money, all that kind of stuff.
Washington field office. Nice promotion. Christopher Wray, who she covered up for, then promoted her. Incredible. And guess what? She is the first person to hold this position at a field office who's an intelligence analyst, right? It's just like in Georgia, where if you do the covering up, like Vic Reynolds did, or like the judge Scott McAfee did, you give them a promotion, you make them a permanent judge forever. Wow, what a great way to do it. As long as they do what you need them to do, you'll take care of them on the way up. Now, she's no longer there. She's at the FBI, but at Microsoft, rather. By her own LinkedIn now, She, quote, routinely, if not daily, briefed Director Wray on 2020 election threats. She knew this was coming through and then recalled it. That chain of command is why investigators say that she's the key witness against Wray. Here is their project's original criminal referral against Christopher Wray. They published that one back in June 2025, so just over a year ago, saying these people buried evidence of Chinese interference and then lied to Congress. 18 U.S. Code, Section 1001, concealing material facts. Now, Operation Round River, okay, under Flores's FIDF task force, Russia collusion hoaxer called Brian Otten opened up an investigation called Round River in August 2020, months before the election. Round River was used to relabel over 40 FBI confidential human sources who were all reporting on the Biden family. Okay, the Biden family came under a lot of scrutiny because of their crackhead son and the fact that Joe Biden was using their son to get out there and actually make money for his family and peddle influence. Joe Biden had arm's length distance away saying, it's not me doing it. And all of the stories started to come out. So then our own CIA helped facilitate John Brennan and 50 other idiots to write a fake letter colluding with the Joe Biden campaign, rigging the election accordingly from our internal analysts. And here inside, these people in FIDF and under Nikki Flores, the same woman who is now running a shadow government, relabeled these people. The operation ignored 150 suspicious activity reports, ignored $10 million in foreign payments over 20 shell companies, and they were, in other words, catching it on both ends.
And if they know all the millions of dollars and the 150 reports and all this and that, and not one of it gets up to Trump and tell him?
Out external information that was bad for Biden and good for Trump, they covered it up. Internal information that they had that was bad for Joe Biden, they relabeled. And so nobody could do anything with it. Round River gave the FBI cover to never investigate the money, even as the same division under Flores aggressively pursued most other preposterous leads against Trump. Round River was also used to go after journalists and others who publicly acknowledged the Biden corruption. Remember this one back in August 6, 2020. Flores, the shadow government person, personally briefed Senators Grassley and Johnson days after Schumer, Warner, Pelosi, and Schiff sent the FBI a letter tying the senators to Russian disinformation. So now it's not the Russians who are doing anything bad. It's if you think that we're doing something bad, you're buying into Russian disinformation and you don't want to be a communist, do you? And love Putin. So the leftists all, again, just blame foreign governments for their own internal malfeasance. Grassley called the briefing unnecessary and completely irrelevant. He asked Flores whether they would, quote, leak that would shed false light on our investigation. They did. It leaked to the press within days and was used to falsely smear his investigation as Russian linked. Same thing that John Brennan did, the CIA. It was all one big operation across multiple domains in the IC. Now, under oath in 2023, Flores admitted that the briefing wasn't even FBI intelligence. She said, I didn't do anything. She said the director of national intelligence did. They took the lead in drafting the script. She delivered the script. She put on the FBI badge and then just regurgitated something from the DNI. The FBI had no intelligence that Grassley's report was tainted. And so the sabotage brief report was also released back in 2023. This is how deep it goes. Now, the pretext, remember that in February 2020, an unusual public appearance for an FBI assistant section chief, a rep of the FIDF, Financial Investigations Task Force, claimed that foreign malign actors sought to create a mistrust of government. Why should we trust them? And let's not forget, okay, this goes all the way back to 2016 and before that, where we had Peter Strzok, the FBI agent who was indicting another FBI agent called Lisa Page. These two were boinking each other and texting each other. We will stop him. We're going to stop the president from actually doing anything. He's not going to win. He's not going to win, will he, baby? No, we will stop him. I love you. In other words, they sought to prop up the woke media and to say, if you say that there are internal problems, it's like pre-butting any criticism of the IC by just saying you're Russian disinformation. When appropriate, the FBI provides actionable intelligence. Of course, the establishment media ran with this, and anything that we said about the Bidens was all just led to an accusation that you're Putin's stooge. A lot of that is still going on, by the way, right now. You have any criticism about anything, it's like you're a foreign bought person. Now, the Chinese suppression also came out. In September 25, then, the FBI Albany source, we just read through those documents, detailed the CCP scheme using stolen TikTok data to create fake driver's licenses. Analysts rated the sources as very, very confident, and the handling of this subsource was called textbook. Minutes after Albany released it, HQ recalled it. And who did that recall? Nikki Flores. The reason, according to Senator Grassley, is that the reporting will contradict Wray's testimony. So the testimony was Wray going in there one day earlier on September 24th saying, no, I have not seen any coordinated national voter fraud. And Flores briefed him regularly. So her division buried the one report that said otherwise. Now, the Albany analyst...
So they went in there and lied is what they did.
Internal note flagged it directly, saying recalling the report implied one of the reasons we aren't putting this out is for a political reason. 100%. Flores' office then made all election intel route through HQ so that they could exact a veto power over actual intelligence. So the Oversights Project criminal referral specifically named Flores explicitly as a bridge of the evidence. She knew of the Chinese threat, and Wray had to have also known about this because she gave daily briefings to him. So then Flores publicly championed the Protective Voices program that ran FBI back channels into Facebook and Twitter and Google to flag foreign disinformation. It's not foreign disinformation. It's Democrat collusion with intelligence agencies. It's political internal enemies within who are rigging the system. The FITIF deplatformed countless social media accounts that had zero nexus to any foreign influence because they didn't like their content. And we were the victim of this. We had multiple videos struck down for talking about January 6th, for talking about the rigged election, for talking about COVID, and had to go through it. And we got off easy, man. We didn't go to prison. So per congressional records and the Twitter files, most content flagged by those wasn't foreign at all. It was conservative speech, including the already authenticated Hunter laptop story. And I mean, they demonetized us for 9 months on YouTube to try to destroy the show, to prevent it from ever blossoming into this beautiful thing that it's become. So the same FITIF under Flores' authority opened inquiries into FBI sources and employees who tried to report the Biden family's conduct. A foreign influence section was turned inward on its own process. Then we had Arctic Frost, right? Goes on and on. Another counter intel case. FBI opened up Arctic Frost to investigate Trump after J6 and for the election fraud. And then Jack Smith came and inherited it. Didn't do his own investigation, just copied the FBI files and just moved it over to his desk and said, it's an independent prosecution now reviewing this. They built on the same tools. They used the same cover-up stuff. And so, of course, FITIF was disbanded Feb 25 after Trump came in. Wray's criminal referral is with the DOJ. Grassley's records request.
The thing is, they're pros at it because they've been doing it for years. That's why.
As for her comms are pending. And now Flores is now the director of insider risk at Microsoft, right? And I think that's where Lisa Monaco is too, isn't she? Lisa Monaco, who was at the DOJ. Did she go over there? Yeah, she did. She's the president of Microsoft Global Affairs. It's like a landing spot for all of the most corrupt intelligence criminals. All go right over to Microsoft. And so here's a little bit more from our friends at Marco Polo. Shout out to Oversight Project for that. We're going to repost that thread at the top of our timeline so you can give those guys a follow. Really, really great report. Boom. There it is. And then more from Marco Polo. So they had here this woman also showing up in visitor logs at the White House. Isn't that curious? So Is that her name? Last name Arnold. Maybe she got married or the name changed, but Marco Polo is usually solid. So that might be her. Nikki F. Arnold. Maybe that's a maiden name or something. So may or may not have been going back and forth to the White House. Here's another document that we read. She just got named an intelligence analyst after she did Christopher Wray's cover-up work for him. Then he promoted her, just like judges in Georgia and elsewhere all got their jobs is by covering up the election fraud. We also saw some other documents here. August 25, 2022. This was a letter sent out for Chuck Grassley from him to her and to her people saying, we got a lot of questions about this. And you provided a briefing to us and you stated things about Christopher Wray. And it seems like you only did so to falsely attack our Biden investigation, calling it Russian disinformation. She's like a foreign intelligence asset or a Democrat intelligence asset, literally. And she's not actually providing the truth or doing her job. She says, you guys, by investigating us and our cover up of the Biden family, we are saying you're foreign misinformation. You're Russian. You're the ones acting on behalf of a foreign agency. But you're literally the ones who are backstabbing your country in these efforts. And let's see, they also got a screen grab of her Facebook. And so looks like her, Nikki Flores Arnold. So she may have gotten married in the aftermath of this is kind of what it's looking like, clipped over from Marco Polo, and may or may not have been going out to the White House. So very troubling indeed. And shout out again to Marco Polo for keeping their eye on this one. We'll repost this too at the top of our timeline. But she has a full bio. She testified in front of Congress. And here is an exchange between her and Matt Gaetz digging into this, who is another now FBI official. And Matt Gaetz asks her.
Oh, you got to hear this part.
Specifically about the Peter Strzok, Lisa Page affair, these two FBI agents who were boinking each other and then colluding with each other to prevent Trump's election victory. We saw that in their text messages. Peter Strzok texts Lisa, we'll stop him. I love you. We're going to fight for America. Totally going to use, the T word, but it's not good at all. So here's more from Nikki Flores testifying with Matt Gaetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish this truly were a sincere hearing on election security. If it were, we might be marking up some of the bipartisan legislation that members of the committee have worked on, including House Resolution 3529 by Congresswoman Murphy, Mr. Deutsch, Ms. Burkersel-Powell, myself, to have greater connectivity prior to any intrusion. Or we might be marking up the legislation by Mr. Ratcliffe, Mr. Himes, joined by Mr. Collins and Mr. Khanna, 3238, that would create greater consequence for those who engage in election interference. But that's not what this is about. This is about smearing the President of the United States and validating the corrupt people who have been involved in delegitimizing his historic election. And we know that because just moments ago, the chairman said that Peter Strzok was acting in the highest traditions of government service. Now, Ms. Flores, I believe you currently hold a job that Mr. Strzok once held. Is engaging in an extramarital affair in the FBI with a coworker acting in the highest traditions of government service?
I'm not going to comment on that, sir.
Are there any regulations of the FBI against it that you're aware of?
I'm not going to comment on that, sir.
Well, you hold Mr. Strzok's job. Are you saying that you don't know whether or not it's against FBI policy to have an extramarital affair with a coworker?
Sir, I hold a slightly different job than Mr. Strzok held. I'm the DAD over the intelligence branch. He was over our operational branch, not that we are held to a different standard. I'm just not going to comment on whether or not Peter Strzok's behavior was out of context.
Is it in the highest traditions of government service at the FBI to engage in affairs with coworkers? You should know that if you work there.
Sir, I'm not going to comment on that.
Wow. Well, maybe I'll ask you another one. The Inspector General said in his report, we did not have confidence that Strzok's decision to prioritize the Russia investigation over following up on the mid-year related investigation. So if the Inspector General didn't have confidence in the way that someone prioritized something, would that be acting in the highest traditions of government service?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on that.
Oh,
The Inspector General further said the OIG found it's not only indicative of a biased state of mind, but even more suspiciously implies a willingness to take action to impact the presidential candidate's electoral process. This is antithetical to the core values of the FBI and the Department of Justice. If anyone is engaging in behavior that is antithetical to the core values of the FBI and Department of Justice, is that person acting in the highest traditions of government service?
Sir, we have an entire inspection division. We have the OIG. There are several measures in place that take into account those questions. I'm not going to answer those questions from the position I am in.
It's just really striking that someone in the senior leadership at the FBI, like an unwillingness to be critical of conduct that was so detrimental to our country. And as people all over America are looking at the corruption that negatively impacted our president and the institution of the presidency, it doesn't really inspire confidence that current officials from the FBI say, hey, you know what? It's a bad idea to be having affairs with your colleagues and to be undermining the trust that people have and to be prioritizing investigations over politics. But nonetheless, here we sit. And in fact, here we do sit. You know, it was more than a month ago, Mr. Chairman, that you announced an impeachment inquiry in this committee. And I believed you that our committee would be engaged in that process. But as we sit here today, 3 other committees are in the basement of the Capitol, conducting secret interviews, engaging in selective leaks. You got Chairman Schiff then coming out and having his theatrical re-performances of transcripts that didn't really occur. And you've got lies about contacts with whistleblowers. Now, regardless of how people feel about the president or this impeachment, one would at least think that if the chairman of the Judiciary Committee announces the launch of an impeachment investigation, that members of the Judiciary Committee might be willing to or able to participate in that investigation. But when I've gone to participate, when Mr. Biggs has gone to participate, when others have gone, we've been locked out. So it is my sincere hope, and I asked this the last time we gathered, that you would take up the cause not just of someone's partisan ambition to impeach the president, but that you would take up the cause of our committee and advocate for our ability to participate, because one can only suspect that the reason that the House Judiciary Committee has been dealt out of the hand on impeachment is because Speaker Pelosi didn't like the outcomes that were going on in this committee when the current chairman was running it. I mean, it wasn't a surprise to the country when you brought in Mr. Lewandowski. House Democrats looked like a dog that caught a car and didn't know what to do with it. When House Democrats brought in Robert Mueller, there were promises that this was going to sway the public. This was going to create a flood of support for impeachment. And that was obviously something that didn't hold to bear. And so please stand up for our committee and let's stop with this busy work. If we want to mark up bills, let's mark up real bills. I yield back.
Matt Gaetz, she, of course, doesn't want to answer any ethical questions because she has no ethics, in our opinion, at all. But we've got the criminal charges, which I think might be appropriate for her, given the fact that she was running a shadow government and concealing information of a material nature from the sitting president of these United States, starting with the obvious one about false statements or concealment of material fact. Right here, 18 U.S. Code, section 1001. Whoever in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, she was actually working for the FBI, so that counts, if she's knowingly and willfully falsifying or concealing or covers up by trick or scheme or device a material fact. Okay, she's going to make an argument. We didn't think it was material. We had a bunch of justifications as to why this report should not be included. But the truth is, she was admitting it. She was running a shadow government. She was keeping this stuff off the books, and people were encouraging her to do it. You need to do what you have to do. Smiley face. Concealing the truth about a legitimate report and then colluding with other people in the IC to massage these things so that the president could not see election-related documents. Now, that I think is sufficient. Imprisonment, not more than 5 years, which is a good start. Now, it doesn't apply in a judicial proceeding with respect to the legislative branch. I think you could probably also hit her for, I haven't watched all of her testimony, but I bet there's a lie or two in there if I had to guess. But otherwise, just in the emails alone, she's running a shadow government. She's massaging and colluding with other people to keep this stuff off of the Trump desk. And so she's concealing a material fact while doing her job. Violation 18 U.S. Code Section 1001. Now, if that doesn't work for you, how about this one? 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals or attempts to do so any document or other thing filed or deposited with any clerk or in any public office or with any judicial or public officer of the United States shall be fined and imprisoned. And whoever having custody of these records unlawfully conceals, again, shall forfeit and be disqualified from office. And so again, she willfully did it. She did it unlawfully. She'll say it's lawfully. He just had a disagreement about the subsource. It just wasn't very well researched. And so we needed to give it another overview. But you go back to her motive, okay? She's calling it Russian disinformation if it's legitimate news about the badness of Joe Biden, and then calls it a bad source if it shows that the election is being rigged against President Trump, which would be a big problem for Joe Biden. So she protects Joe Biden, and she is concealing evidence in the process of doing that. And so maybe that one can be investigated by the DOJ. And then we have another one under Section 793, which may or may not apply. Let's see. Whoever, for the purpose of obtaining information respecting national defense, with intent or reason to believe that the information is to be used in the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation, goes upon, enters, flies over, or otherwise obtains information about a bunch of things, or other places connected with national defense, or any other places, does one of the following. Basically retrieving this information. Now, let's see what subsection B says. Whoever, for the purposes of the aforesaid, with the intent or reason to believe, copies, takes, or obtains any other documents, or this is kind of Espionage Act stuff. Whoever, for the purpose, receives or obtains or receives any of this other information, anything connected, knowing or having reason to.
I'm going to try fast forward a little bit. There was another good part here that I'm trying to find it.
No, going to apply. More on the trick promoted by Christopher Wray for covering up for him, basically running a shadow government.
Yeah, here, this part. Let me go back 10 seconds. So, right here.
Very antithetical to your job description. It is undermining your country, and it is a betrayal on a scale that is massive. And so there needs to be penalties for this. Can't let them continue to get away with it. Her messages, once again, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. An admission, and we've got a witness who received that message. So hopefully, as Trump mentioned, this is being looked at.
So does anyone think in the chat there that anyone will see some jail time for this or something? I mean, she's at Microsoft now, but anyone? I don't know. It's called sticky notes. Yeah, there you go. I'm always worried that I won't unmute myself and I'll be talking away and it'll be blank everything. Does anyone think that any of them will spend time in jail or at least get arrested or something? I don't know. I'm hoping. There's a lot more to come out on this. Tomorrow, I think VB's going on a half an hour earlier, or an hour earlier. So I'll probably be on at 8 Eastern, right after she should be done. Okay? Kind of planning them that way. So, and Sunday, cross your fingers. I think I have someone from Iran that's going to come on Sunday. I'm not sure about the time yet. Sunday, I think an actual person from Iran's going to brave it and come on. Now that they're winning, it's going well, and they're not as worried about getting harmed. We'll see. Cross your fingers on that one. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Nothing's going to happen. Oh, I so wanted to, John. You know, we've been disappointed so many times that I understand you feeling that way. But it seems like they got the goods on them this time, to me. And that. All right, I'll let everyone go. I know it's late.